Afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you may find yourself in the world. Welcome to another segment of Sofa Ranch's Mental Health Awareness Month. May is Mental Health Awareness all over the country, and we have decided to interview all different types of individuals, mental health professionals, people who are in the equine space, and just regular everyday folk that have an opportunity to interact with horses. And today we have another special and awesome guest. This particular guest is actually, he sits on the board of directors here at Sofa Ranch. He's been coming to Sofa Ranch for over almost 2 years now. And
Yeah,
he's uh he's a licensed psycho what is it psych
clinical psychologist.
clinical psychologist. Let me get that right. Licensed clinical psychologist. And today we are meeting with Dr. Rod Watts. Doc, how you doing today, man?
I'm feeling really good, man. Really good. How about
Good.
you?
Oh, it's a beautiful day in my neck of the woods. Beautiful day in my neck of the woods. And so, first of all, I want to thank you so much for giving us a opportunity to be on with, well, you giving us an opportunity to be on with us today. And so, it's a wonderful thing to meet people like yourself who have been working in the mental health space for such a long time. So, why don't you go ahead and share with our audience some of the things that you have done in the mental health space? I know you've been in California and New York and all these different other places. Just give it a little bit insight of who you are and what you do.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate being you bringing me in on your work here. Well, I've actually been had have two lives. One being a professor of psychology and doing research, and my focus was around issues of Black liberation and working with young people in their own personal um, political development. And that's been for about 30, 35 years or so. And now I'm shifting into seeing clients once again. So I've gone from thinking about the sort of structural world and the kinds of things that are going on in major institutions and governments down to individuals who are at the end of all that power and in their lives. And so that's been it's been a nice shift. It's been a fresh sort of a life for me now and in these times. So I'm feeling good. And
Excellent.
so that's kind of where I am now, and I'm also enjoying some time didn't have when I was working full time, and spending it at the Sofa Ranch, and so it's just a delight for me to do that. It's my form of therapy for myself.
Excellent. Excellent. So I know you've done a lot of work with particularly young men. And so, what would you say are the three most pain points for a lot of men that affect them in their everyday life and their mental health?
Probably the biggest one is this notion of masculinity and the and for young men trying to develop themselves around the kinds of media, um, the kind of media exposition you see for Black men and for men in general. So we're expected to be um, invulnerable. Uh,
Mm,
we're expected to be warriors.
mm.
We're expected to be um, successful in making a lot of money. We're expecting to not have uh, any vulnerable forms of emotion like
Mm.
sadness,
Yeah.
like fear,
Mm.
like a feeling of being lost. You
Mm.
always have to be cool. You always have to be uh, in in control, and you're always on the top.
Wow.
And all of those things are completely unrealistic
Mm,
for anyone. And the gap between the young men, how they see who they are and what they think they're supposed to be, is a gap that causes lots of strain, what we call gender strain, when they're trying to meet some expectations that are both not um, effective in their lives, but also are impossible. So I worked with them around that, and I think that it makes a good connection between um, equine therapy because it gives them a chance to start thinking about some of their emotions, about
mm.
communication, about beginning to understand how they can be um, they can be effective in their own lives.
Mm. That's very, very important because, like, one of the first things you talked about was that masculinity. And years ago, I was telling my children the distance between expectation and reality is called frustration.
Right.
And so it's we have this unrealistic expectation that we're supposed to be like this and we're supposed to do like this and this is supposed to happen and all of that. And so in that, one of the things I love about working with horses because it breaks that down completely. I know with situations like yourself, like when you're out, so the way I train and the way I, guide people to through the horses. I remember we were going through this rough, wet spot in the land,
Right.
and it was like, and I can see, and I fell in the water. I fell into the deep, and you were just kind of impressed with the way I handled the situation because the horse and I were stuck. And the thing about that particular situation, it lended itself to a opportunity for leadership, an opportunity for connection, and even an opportunity for communication. Because if I would have gotten, all crazy and panicked, it would have put the horse in the same type of situation. And so, with working with horses, it really gives us and really lends us the opportunity of where our expectation and closing that gap of that frustration because I can have a certain level of expectation and I can have a certain level of reality. But if I close that gap, it reduces the that frustration. And I remember you saying, saying, I'm glad, that was you and not me because I would have panicked. And, and so it's one of those things where I try to put people in so many different types of situations so that no matter what they do while they're on the horse, they actually can keep themselves calm and they can keep themselves in that same working capacity, and that way they have that opportunity to transfer it to their everyday life.
Yeah, and respect always comes up to into mind when I'm on a horse.
Mm,
And for young men, that's a huge issue of having respect, and the it's been the root of a lot of shooting and killing around being
mm,
disrespected. And but when I get on a horse, when I was, you know, a beginner, I found that my horse didn't really respect me because it knew that I didn't really have any skills. And but over time, especially when I was working with you, Daryl, and beginning to develop some skills, I began to realize uh, that the horse started to change its behavior. It would often not allow me to run too fast because I think it would think I would fall off. And
mhm,
so, but as I began to develop the skills And I respected that, like the horse, when my horse at that time, we went into some mud. I was calm, and I knew the horse had a lot of experience with these situations, and I respected and trusted the horse to get out. And I just was relaxed. I nudged them a little bit, but we worked together and got out, and everything was is good. And that is that the kind of thing that really develops a sense of self confidence and trust between your horse and you, and both of you develop respect for each other, and that's a powerful feeling when you also have not mastery by any sense for me, but a sense that I've seen how my own development in these skills has been satisfying, and my horse has told me so by body language. And that's another thing I think that's really important for folks to be, especially young men, to develop communication skills
Mhm.
and to think about um, uh, to think about got my words here. Communication is not just talking, but it's also in the body.
Yes, yes.
And when you're on the horse, what your body does is communicating something to the horse,
Mhm.
and their activities also give you information. And so you kind of get more into your body and less into your head when you're on a
Mm.
horse. And for me, that's good for us professors. Being in our heads is too much is occupational hazard.
Yeah.
And so bring ourselves into our body, and the movement and the cadence of the horse is another powerful experience for me.
And it's so interesting that you would say that, because many times when people come out for lessons, they often talk about, they one of the first things they want to do is they want to start going fast, and they want to say, so how long is it going to take for me to learn how to gallop, or how long is it going to take for me to learn how to go fast? And my typical answer is, when you allow the fear not to dictate your body, because I can tell you all day what to do, and even if I tell you and show you how to do it, there still is that level of anxiety. There still is that level of fear that will control the way your body moves. So if I'm telling you heels down, toes up, or relax a little bit, or drop your arms, all those different things, because you're afraid of a person, maybe afraid of falling, they're still allowing that fear to dictate how they respond to a situation. And one of the things that you just said was really important about that, being that mental awareness, and even that physical awareness of just really understanding how you are showing up. And I think that's so important, especially when we're talking about the masculinity of males, how we show up in the world, that nonverbal communication, where you may say to someone, hey, is there something wrong? Or hey, what's wrong with you? And what do they say? Nothing. But their body language is telling us something totally different. Talk to a little bit more about your interaction with men and their verbal and non-verbal communication.
Well, often there's you want to often young men wear sort of a mask in some sense, uh, uh, being invulnerable, who they're trying to demand um, respect by a certain body language and a certain way of talking and thinking,
Hmm.
and cool. And you got to find a way to get through that, because you find that's only a veneer. There's much more going on with them,
Hmm.
and to get them to relax and get them to begin to explore some of their emotions, and
Hmm.
that's the real big thing. I mean, often they don't even have a real vocabulary
Mm.
for their feelings, and so have difficulty ex, experiencing them and talking about them. And I always come back to thinking about the horses in that, because but what you said about that is there's a fear there, because you got this huge animal who um, you're going to get in, and if they want to, they could knock you off, right?
Hmm.
And so for men in the bravado, I think for young men it tamps down that bravado a little bit. You met your match here, okay,
Hmm.
and then some. And so they start kind of dealing with that about their self-confidence, and what they're going to do. And it's thrilling. It's fascinating to be in such a magnificent animal, but there's still this little tweak of fear, that at any time you could go off of it. And again, that's back to this issue of communication. Um, to getting into your body and communicating with uh, another species. And I think all of that helps them to have some experiences and feelings uh, and and focusing on what's going on. And that's I think is one of the amazing things about it, because the horses, you have to develop a relationship, and everyone has a different personality, just like humans do.
Hmm.
But something about having your body on the top of a horse, and that communication is just amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And one of the things that you talked about too, as well, is one of the reasons why I got my certification with an organization through PATH is because with PATH, Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship, they actually give you the opportunity to engage in the actual mounted therapy portion of riding. And so many other organizations, they just do work where you're not mounted, or you're doing what we call groundwork with the horse. But it's that also that mounted. I think that mounted, being mounted on the horse, gives that extra push, that gives that extra just level of confidence that a person can actually have the ability to have. And so another thing that you mentioned, which was quite interesting to me as well, is the fact that when we're working with these young men, and that false sense of vibrato is present, and then we get to actually see, how they are showing up in the world, because we say something here when we're in therapeutic session, is how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so we really see that people are not making decisions, they're actually following patterns. And so even when we are in a close confined space with a horse, and we may be in a therapeutic session, and the person is very, very uneasy, and now they're saying, oh, I'm not scared, but in reality they are. We're able to identify how they handle issues when they're outside of the ranch or outside in the real world. Talk to us a little bit more about what made you choose coming to Sofa Ranch.
Um, I have to confess that I got really kind of tired in going to places where you go clippity clop, walking and only walking, and not having any experience with uh, other cadences. And I really was looking for that, couldn't find it. Tried some dressage a little bit, and I couldn't get that. That wasn't working for me. And so then I came to you, and I knew I had been riding horses on and off for all my life, really, but never really learned how to ride.
Hmm.
And so the idea that at some point I would be able to gallop. I'm just like the other guys you're talking about, man. When can I ride? When I can, but I was smart enough not to tell you that, because I knew that.
But I mean, you have really captured and in an intermediate level of all stages: walking, trotting, cantering, and even the gallop. And in some instances, uh, when Rod comes out to the ranch, we go on long rides. We sometimes go on for 2 hours or so,
Right.
and then so Rod, when we're coming back, Rod will pass me, and he just open up with the horse, and he's gone. I'm like, all right, buddy, you are, because there was a time that you were kind of in step with me or a little close behind me, and Rod's like, man, I'm going, and he'll get into a gallop or get into a canter, and he's miles ahead of me. But that shows the level of confidence that he's been able to grow in, because horses are a wonderful confidence builder. Whether you're working
Right.
on the ground or in the saddle with the horse, they are wonderful confidence builders, because once again, Rod referred to it earlier, establishing that relationship,
It is.
establishing that connection that is needed. And so, whether you are a leader, whether you are a subordinate, many times that connection is so vital to to the progression of various relationships. And one of the things that we try to do here with Sofa Ranch is draw parallels, and create those parallel situations where what you are experiencing with the horse, you are actually, or you can actually begin to experience in your everyday life. So it's so important that, especially for people who are afraid of horses, who may have been intimidated by horses, it's so important that we value those relationships that are in our lives. And then working with those horses, it really gets draws a highlight to, oh, this is what it may look like when I'm working with my spouse, or this is what it may look like when I'm working with my teacher, or this is what it may look like when I'm working with my coworker. Because that horses, all throughout this series, we've been talking about mirror neurons, and horses have the ability to have those mirror neurons where they are matching your heart rate. And so Rod alluded it to it earlier. When he was a little tense and anxious on the horse respected that tension and anxiousness and kept it at a moderate speed. But the moment he was comfortable, the horse is like, all right, let's go. So we can now say, well, what does that look like in your everyday life? Is there something that you've been trying to accomplish, but you've been hesitant about it? And the way you communicate it to your audience, they can feel that tension. So they may be hesitant and quite resistant to moving forward with you. And so things like that are very important when you're trying to show up in the world. You may be trying to go up for a promotion, but the confidence level is not there. You may be one of the top producers in your field. You may be, one of the go-to persons at the company, but because there's a certain level of confidence that you're not exuding in that particular situation, it may present itself as challenging on how the person may be able to feel comfortable with you moving to the next level. So horses can give us these life lessons, and also this emotional balance to help us achieve more and do more.
Yeah, and I think the self confidence is a real big plus. Is that and this whole idea of mastery, and feeling like you can do something, and you have a skill that involves both your mind and your body,
Hmm.
and it's really a sweet spot for riding, because it's challenging. It's always challenging. You never get perfect at it, but and it's a challenge, but not so big a challenge that you just say, "Oh, I can't do this." You see yourself getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, and then to the point, like you say, and you get things like, okay, you go from a canter to a gallop. It's those kinds of things that are satisfying and make you feel like you're and builds a sense of confidence, and that feelings of fear really kind of goes way down.
Hmm.
And but you're focusing on what you're doing, and you realize that, you know what, I'm really doing this well now, and I'm compared to what I was doing 7 6 7 months ago. It's no night and day. And like you said, I think they take that out of the stable, to the trail, out from the trail, to to their lives and generalize it about what it takes to develop a skill. And it's going to be a challenge, but it'll be satisfying at the end if you stick with it.
And you mentioned an important point right there. We are in the generation where people don't necessarily believe things should be a challenge, and everything should have an easy button. Talk to us a little bit more about the emotional impact that could have on a person where they lack the coping skills when they are actually addressed with a problem.
Well, the first thing they think about is, they get nervous, you get nervous. Uh, Little voices will be in your head about, well, I don't think I can do this. And that ends up being sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Uh,
Mm,
because really when we talk about self-esteem and self-confidence, it's not something you can talk yourself into. You have to have life experiences
mhm,
of difficulties, challenges that you've overcome, that mastery in something. And if you have that behind you on your own mental track record, you're saying, well, this is, yeah, I remember that I felt the same way when I was trying to do this, that, or being on the horse, and I can do this too.
mhm.
And so it's really, and it's important though, I think, in working with young people to make sure that they get things slightly a little more difficult each time, because you don't want, the first two things you try to do fail, and that just spirals downward. But when you work with them first, you just kind of learn, look at them. Maybe you brush them. You do that right, and you may give them some water. You may do some things around there. Then you learn how to get on it
Mhm.
and feel comfortable and just walk in a circle. And then you go from walking the circle at some point and learning how to turn and make sure you deal with the reins at least a little bit. And then you get out into a trail, and not too steep, not too up and down. And, and, and that's where you need to have a mentor, where you need an instructor who's watching you, and it builds you. But then you don't want to make it, every once in a while, like I told you when we were going through all those trees, and I was saying, Lord, I'm going to die. But no, I mean, I immediately kind of got into it and just enjoyed
Yeah, and the thing about it is, on our last ride, we actually found this beautiful section of where all this beautiful water was. But in order to get to the water, we had to maneuver through some trees, and maneuvering through those trees, it may have it could have startled some people, but
Well, we
because
weren't walking either now.
yeah, exactly. And the thing about it is, because I have put Rod through a bunch of things, and because I want Rod to be able to go anywhere and ride, whether it's my horse or whether you're going you're doing like a going out on the terrain sometime soon, aren't you? Or
Oh,
that you did before?
oh yeah, I did some mountain hiking. Is that what you're
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and so in that, you experience this and you experience that, and he talked about that pattern making, that pattern of, hey, if I did this over here, then guess what? I can do this over here because it's applicable. The same mental capacity that it's going to take to accomplish this particular task, it's going to take the same mental capacity to accomplish that mental task. But so many times people get so stuck because they may have experienced a setback, or they experienced something that didn't work, or it was a challenge, whatever the case may be. You can use that same energy. The same energy that you're using for fear is the same energy that you can use for being able to be confident.
Right.
And so it's just a flip of a your POV, your point of view. How are you looking at the problem? I was talking to a gentleman just recently who had come out of an incarceration situation, and he was very challenged, getting himself back reacclimated to life. And in listening to him talk, I heard it was about his perspective of how he was looking at it. And at the time, he was sitting on a motorcycle, and I just simply posed this proposition to him. I said, the gas that is in this motorcycle can be used to burn down a building, or it can be used to burn not burn, but be used to get you from point A to point B in this motorcycle. So the gas is not changing, but how you use it is going to change. And so when you are working, as we are working with horses or working with people who are trying to overcome anxiety or overcome different situations, the situation may not change, but how you look at the situation can change. So same way when we were talking to that gentleman about the gas can be used to burn something, or gas can be used to be powered to power something. And so
That's
the
right.
challenges that you face in your life, they can be either used to tear you down, or you can switch your perspective and say, you know what, I'm going to use this situation to build me up. And so horses give us that capacity, because we may be in a fretful situation, or oh my gosh, this horse is so big, or oh my gosh, this horse can overpower me. But guess what? If you work in connection with that horse, or if you work with the horse in establishing that rapport and relationship, you now can have a viable relationship and transfer that same principle to your everyday life. So it's really not about what's happening to you, it's about how you're looking at what's happening to you.
Right. And I think it makes a lot of sense to think about the issue of fear, because there are very few things you can do. I think that challenges uh, that involve a communication with some sort of being. Uh, it is there's something about that that really gets you thinking about and focused about what you're doing. I mean, because you could fall off the horse,
Mm-hmm.
um, or the horse could even kick you. Who knows what? But I'm saying there's something about getting past that and holding it for a while until you get some skills. That transition to being afraid, to be thrilled, and to having it being sort of second nature is really, I think, probably the most powerful aspect of it for me, for writing. Making that, going fast that way, but being sensible
Yeah,
about the terrain. You're not going to be doing that in a muddy place.
yeah.
You're responsible about it. It's thrilling, and it reinforces you what you've accomplished.
Well, we're getting ready to come into it for a close, uh, Dr. Watts. And if we could just leave, if there's one thing that you could leave off with our audience and sharing them about the mental wellness and the connection of equine assisted activities or equine assisted therapy, what would that one thing be that you want to share with our audience?
The one thing would be communication,
Mm,
learning about being a good communicator, learning about regulating your emotions
mm,
when you're communicating with people,
mm.
uh, learning to trust, learning to get respect. All of these things associated with communicating effectively are essential for a happy and successful life. And many of these issues come up for you uh, in working with horses, and you learn those lessons when you get out of the ranch and into the world of work and relationships and love and all that good stuff.
So communication is probably one of the most valuable, important things that could help or maintain a relationship of any kind, whether it's professional or personal. So I just want to thank you so much, Dr. Rod, for your time today. We've truly appreciated your presence. And so I'm going to go ahead. If you hold on 1 second, we'll go ahead and close on out 1 second.
Okay.
Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to this awesome segment with Dr. Rod Watts of, just the Mental Health Awareness Month. And want to once again give out our information. If you'd like to learn more information about who we are and what we do, you can find that information at sofaranch.com. All that content information is right on your screen right there. And we'll give an opportunity to just learn more about who we are, what we do. In addition to that, if you would like to make a donation, because we are a 501c3 organization, all your donations are tax deductible. And you'll click on the give button to support the work that we're doing. We work with young people and we work with adults, giving them the opportunity to overcome anxiety, build confidence, build communication skills, all the while working with horses. Once again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this awesome mental health awareness highlight. And thank you again, Dr. Watts, for tuning in and joining us for this. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast.